Just imagine a world where you will hold your entire future in the palm of your hand, when a tiny glowing crystal will guide you through an existence in which each day is more wonderful than the last, where it will be possible for you to obtain the fulfillment of every fantasy, the satisfaction of every vanity, the absolute attainment of every wish.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Grundleverse. My name is Grundle, and I am here today with the Macleod Xperience to watch Logan's Run. Alright, so we have watched the movie. Just a little background for anyone who hasn't seen it, and there will be spoilers. This is Logan's Run, the 1976 classic. Starring Tom York?
Michael York.
Michael York.
Tom York is Radiohead.
Maybe it would be more exciting if it starred Tom York as a baby.
Yeah.
Now I have
2 years ago.
Now I have not seen Logan's Run before. Mark has seen it. So why don't you run the audience through what Logan's Run is? Give us a basic plot line here.
All right, it is a sci-fi movie that takes place in like 2250 or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Around that time. Everybody lives in this one big domed city. It's a paradise. Everybody, all their needs are met. But when you turn 30, you die.
Yeah.
When you turn 30, you're supposed to go to this thing called Carousel. All the people born on the same day as you all go together. You go through this thing. You fly up in the air, and it looks like everybody's exploding, but you have the chance to renew. If you renew, you come back to life and get to keep living. And if you don't go to Carousel, then you are chased down by these men called Sandmen. They're basically future cops, security guards, and they terminate runners. You become a runner. If you don't go to Carousel, you become a runner, and then you were chased down by Sandmen.
Yeah. So Michael York's character, not Tom. I'm going to keep calling him Tom York.
Logan 5.
Yeah. So Logan 5, he is not turning 30, but the computer assigns him a mission.
Logan chases down a runner.
Yeah.
And on that runner, he finds an Ankh.
Mm-hmm.
And when he goes to turn in all the paraphernalia that he found from this runner and do his report type thing, the computer pulls him into a special chamber and talks to him, asks him if he knows what that item is, tells him what it is, tells him it's an Ankh, asks him if he's ever heard the word sanctuary, and tells him it's now his mission to go outside, which nobody is supposed to have ever done, and to find sanctuary.
Yeah.
He asks the computer if anyone's ever renewed. The computer says, you have your answer, meaning no one's ever renewed. It does tell him that runners had escaped before. 1,056 had escaped before. It has him put his the way they keep track of their time is this crystal on their hand that changes color with age. So the computer has him put his hand on this pedestal and basically ages him forward and makes him a runner.
Yeah, sets up his crystal so that he looks like it's blinking and he's about to turn 30.
Right.
Okay.
So this makes him now a runner. So now he's got the Sandmen chasing him, and he's supposed to find a way to get outside and find this place called Sanctuary.
Yeah. So he hooks up with this girl that he met through that runner that he
Interlink?
chased down. The Interlink? Oh, yeah.
He meets her through that.
Okay.
There's this thing called the Interlink. It's basically future Tinder.
Yeah, future Tinder, yeah.
And she has the same symbol hanging from her neck. She's got an Ankh on her necklace.
Yeah, so that's why she's his connection to try to get to Sanctuary, because he thinks she has some connection because of the Ankh.
So when he becomes a runner, he tries to talk her into meeting up with her friends because he thinks that her friends know something.
Now I'm going to fast forward you here because I really feel like that chunk there where he meets their friends and then he gets to the outside of the dome can basically be summed up with that he runs.
Yeah.
He runs and he gets chased, and they eventually get out of the dome.
They finally get to this door. The Ankh is a key.
Yeah.
It lets them outside.
Yeah. Once they get outside, they find that they're in Washington, D.C., because you see the monument, which they don't know what it is, but you see the Washington Monument, so you know where they are. Everything's overgrown. They see the Lincoln Memorial. They wind up in Congress. I believe that's where they meet the old
Library
man.
of Congress.
Library of Congress. I'm not sure. Either way, they meet.
There were like a lot of books and stuff. I think that's what they're trying to get across.
Yeah, so they meet this old man, and they've never seen anyone old before. They're blown away by, oh, your hair is gray, and what are those cracks on your face? Do they hurt?
Yeah. Also, it has about 19 cats.
Yeah, with about.
And they've never seen a cat before.
Cats. Yeah. So they meet the old man, and then they decide that they realize there's no such place as sanctuary, right? That is the realization they come to.
They kind of come to that. Also, this whole time they've been chased by one of the Sandmen. Logan 5's best friend, Francis.
Francis 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, Francis 7.
So they're chased this whole time. Finally, Francis catches up to them. They have a fight, and they wreck this one cat.
Oh, boy. Oh.
We'll come back to that,
We'll come back to that. Getting off track when we're talking about cat wrecking.
Yeah, let's get back to the story.
So, I did forget. Francis is chasing them, and that is important, but like as far as the actual plot beats, Francis is just kind of there. They never really know that he's chasing them. You see that he's behind them the whole time, but like... The story moves along without Francis right up until he confronts them at that point.
Yeah.
And then he gets... there's a fight. They kill Francis. And then they make the decision to go back to Sanctuary... Not to Sanctuary, to the...
to the city.
Yeah, to the city. Because they realize that their crystals in their hands have turned clear. Meaning that... Signifying something. This is... Maybe you'll have to explain this to me. Like, okay, their things turned clear, so now this means that the whole system is... incorrect and broken, essentially.
I think it's kind of that. I think they also think that whatever controls the crystals kind of has power over them, and so they realize that once they've broken free of that, they're not like under the control of that system.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get to that, and I want to get all into that. But just basic plot. So they go back to the city to try to say to everybody, "Hey, look, the things, everything's been a lie," and then they get tackled by the authorities. And he gets strapped to an interrogation chair, and the computer interrogates him. Doesn't get the answers the computer wants, and it goes haywire, and the whole citadel explodes. And everybody...
The computer thinks he's trying to hide something, it seems, but he's not. He's telling the truth the whole time, and the computer just goes berserk, and then things start exploding. Yeah,
and I want to get into all that. And that's the trouble with trying to explain this plot is I don't fully understand everything that happened in the movie. And I guess, okay, so that's the basic plot. Everything explodes, everybody goes outside the city, sees the old man that was there, and then movie ends. Everybody has a smile on their face, and the movie ends. You assume it's like a WALL-E kind of ending. It's
like they found this whole new world.
Okay. So
the world seems livable now. It looked like there had been some kind of big uprising or war to end all wars, but...
Yeah, so...
But it was like a WALL-E situation. They land on a planet that they can live on.
Yeah, so... And that's the end of the movie. So that's the basic plot. So, all right. So you hadn't seen this in a while. How do you feel it held up?
I liked it a lot more than I remember liking it. Like when I first saw it, it was kind of a gag thing because I had seen this other movie that referenced it a bunch, Free Enterprise.
Yeah.
And so I finally went and saw it with one of my close friends, but at the time, and I ended up actually liking it. But it's an old kind of campy sci-fi movie, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think it had a huge following. It's got decent reviews on like IMDb and stuff. But all of this is like anybody who's reviewing it there, your opinions change over time. It's pretty well regarded for, being an old movie like that.
Yeah.
But I thought it held up really well. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I expected to. I thought this was going to be kind of a gag. And I really liked it.
Yeah, see, going in, I hadn't seen it at all, and I can't say I knew a lot about it. It's one of those movies that you feel like you know a lot about because you've seen it referenced so often.
Yeah.
Like I've seen the Family Guy reference with Brian in his dream. The crystal in the hand thing pops up in so many things that you feel like, okay, I know the movie because it's about a guy with a crystal in his hand.
Yeah, there's a lot of old movies that are like that. They have like one main thing that gets ripped off constantly in the name of comedy.
And I would say I was pleasantly surprised at how much more there was to it. It definitely felt like a 70s movie in that it was 2 hours long. It was going to be 2 hours long, and we're going to fill it with whatever we can to make it that long.
Right, like I don't feel like it had to be 2 hours.
Yeah.
But because it was the 70s, it had to be. It was a feature film.
But at the same time, everything that was in there, I was interested in, and I wanted to know more about.
They did a lot of world building. they jump right in and don't kind of like explain anything to you, but through context you kind of can figure out what a lot of the things mean.
And that's one of the, it's one of the notes the first notes I made was, man, it feels like the movie's not telling me anything, and I kind of like that. I didn't want to ask you, hey, did I miss something? Did I,
well, like you figure out the naming convention, like they're clones, obviously.
Yeah.
Or, well, no, they're made from a seed mother or whatever.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're doing some kind of cloning, because obviously they're not procreating.
Yeah.
Because they seem very confused by a man and a woman having a child. So it seems like they're using science to take DNA from both sides and then just make a child. Yeah, and they're continuing these lines. Like, each person is a name, and then they're, like, what number they are in the generation.
Yeah, and that wasn't fully clear, but, it wasn't fully clear, I think we'll find is a running theme throughout this entire movie.
Yeah.
And almost everything we're going to bring up, I think that's going to be the final conclusion we're going to come to, is it wasn't really clear. But that kind of allows for some just interesting thought. Like, I know you're saying it's clones and stuff, and that's entirely possible. I was also thinking maybe it's not anything that deep. Maybe they're just naming these people as like a societal thing. Like, maybe the people think that they're being renewed and reborn. Like, oh, this is Ethan 6, just like Ethan 5 must have been reborn. But the machines in charge are just doing that as, kind of a way to keep the people thinking the system is working when it's not.
Maybe.
Because the renewal thing isn't true in the end.
Right.
And the renewal thing is probably one of the more confusing aspects to me, is I don't understand exactly what they meant by, by being renewed. Like,
and I don't think anybody did, though, because Logan point blank asks Francis at one point, have you ever seen anybody be renewed?
Yeah. And
he just assumes that there must have been somebody. And like, everybody's so young that they just kind of assume that the system must work.
Yeah. But they're all watching the process at Carousel. I think that's what confused me, is that they're... Yeah. Like, are they watching and seeing literally everyone explode? And are they being told that some of these people are being renewed? Or should they be seeing something different if someone's renewed?
Or maybe they're just not paying attention too closely because it's a perfect society, and like, why question it when everything's nice?
Yeah.
It could just be like people aren't questioning it because like they don't really care. And then, until this one guy starts questioning things.
Yeah, and the movie,
which I think is the point.
I think the movie can get away with that. It can get away with a lot of things being unclear in that way because, like, as a plot point, because the society, everybody's dead at 30, so there's a limited capacity for, passed down knowledge.
Well, especially when you're not raising your own bloodlines, too.
That was the other
thing. So you don't have a child to fill their head with whatever you believe.
Because everyone is basically living... They're all living for the moment. They're all living for pleasure. They're all, nobody seems to have any jobs, which is weird because obviously some people have jobs. Like do. The people that they need, like there needs to be a doctor, so there's a guy who's a plastic surgeon doctor. There needs to be Sandmen, so there's Sandmen. But what is everybody else doing?
To be fair, they all seem to really enjoy their work.
Yeah, they did.
And the Sandmen really like being Sandmen.
Yeah, well, no.
The regular people kind of fear the Sandmen. The doctor guy is super into his work.
But the Sandman thing you bring up, I know what you're talking about is at the beginning when they're chasing down the first runner. And they're not only shooting at him with smiles on their face, but they're like, telling him, run, runner, run. Like, they're hunting him.
Yeah, they're toying with him the whole time.
And at the time, I'm thinking...
And, they just have the most ecstatic look on their faces while they're shooting at him.
Yeah, and it feels deranged, but when you stop and you think about it, like, the runner is someone who, by society standards, should be dead. This isn't like they're so much taking a life as they're just, cleaning up. Well, this guy's 30. He should be dead by now.
Yeah.
So it's harder to judge them on, like, is killing really that big of a deal?
Right. They don't even kill it. They don't even think that they're killing people. They call it termination.
Yeah.
And he even corrects the girl one time. Like, the girl is like, you just like killing people, don't you? He's like, I don't like killing people. I don't even kill anybody.
Yeah,
I terminate runners, but I don't kill people.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even see runners as people.
There's never any mention anywhere in the movie of crime or murder within the dome. Like, nobody's ever accused.
It doesn't seem like it seems like it doesn't exist. And why would it? Like,
I think the movie asks you to assume that it's an idyllic society.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the point of the movie is to tear down the idyllic society. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's an issue I've always had with any movie that does this, where, like Matrix, same thing.
Yeah.
Where the whole point is you need to wake up because this isn't real. but what's real is terrible, and and what you're waking up from was actually okay. I don't know. How do you feel about the death at 30 thing? Did it bother you? Did it make the society feel like...
I'm surprised to have made it to 35. I think that was the reason I liked this movie early on. Like, early my younger years, I was like, I'll be dead by 30 anyway.
Yeah.
This would be a paradise. I wish I could live like this. So yeah, I was upset that they tore everything down before I was 30. Now that I'm 35, I don't know, maybe I'd like to, continue living.
And well, actually, that is the point that Logan makes when he's trying to explain to them why he's flipping to being a runner instead of a Sandman. He's like, well, yeah, but it's different now because it's me.
Yeah.
It's my life now, so it matters. I personally, I thought that whole thing was a little thin.
And I thought he was just saying that just to convince her because, like, it seems like he was put on a mission.
I think he was. He was on that mission up until they leave, at least.
Yeah.
Until they get out the door.
So I think when he was saying things, like, whenever he was like, yeah, well, this is different, it's me. I don't think it was him being selfish. I think it was him just...
Yeah. In fact,
trying to infiltrate.
I think there's, like, a straight up divide you can make with that character between when he leaves that door, he's a
I think once they, like,
character.
survive Box,
Yes.
the robot.
Yeah, once
I think we glossed over in the rundown.
I didn't really want to go into Box during the rundown because I feel like that whole scene had nothing that moved the plot forward.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
Talk about, and I want to talk about it, but I don't think that the Box scene did anything, and that's another theme with a lot of these scenes. There's a lot of scenes that don't do anything with the plot.
Yeah,
but they're still interesting scenes.
Yeah, they do some kind of interesting but weird world building.
Yes,
like they almost made it like so when they first escape. They escape through these like tunnels that have all these things that look like they used to process water, and then they have these things that look like they used to be aquariums and house fish. And it looked like the beginnings of being like a self-sustaining city.
Yes.
Like maybe that's how it all started, but then they moved forward in technology and left some of this stuff behind.
Yeah, and that, in thinking about it, I guess that makes a lot of sense with the Box scene. Because Box
he's
says,
like,
well, the fish all dried up.
The fish stopped coming, the plankton stopped coming.
Yeah,
so now I just freeze whatever comes through, and it's just been these runners who have escaped.
Yeah.
So he's got this wall of frozen people, and so basically all of the runners that escaped, at first they kind of like make you think they might have gotten to Sanctuary, but they've run into this robot in this frozen ice cavern. Yeah. And he's just been putting everybody on ice.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I guess so we've just described the scene like from 3 different angles. Yeah. Basically, they get to this room and everything's frozen. There's a bunch of frozen penguins and frozen walruses.
Yeah.
And this robot comes out looking very 70s.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, I have much food. I have fish of the sea and plankton and sea greens." And then they see a bunch of the runners frozen in ice. And he's like, "Well, the fish of the sea and the plankton stopped coming, so I froze this other meat that came. And now I must freeze you!" And he brings out 2 giant guns. And that was all ridiculous. And it was great to watch and really surreal, but it meant nothing.
Yeah.
It did nothing.
As far as the plot of the entire movie went, it mattered. It did not matter at all.
Like, I thought it was going to turn out that, that was Sanctuary, and it turns out the whole thing was a lie.
And that's when you realized there was an hour left in the movie, and you're like, oh, God damn it, we need a break.
Yep. It feels like once they get out of the Box situation and they get through the door, it feels a little slow there for a bit, because you're going pretty fast-paced up to that point.
Yeah. It slows down for a little bit while they're, doing the travel montage, but then once they finally find some water...
Yeah.
It picks back up.
Well,
that's when they notice that their things are clear, and they realize that they're free.
No, I would count that in as slowing down. I would say that I feel like the movie really dragged from the point that they left the door all the way up through the Washington Monument stuff,
until they get to the
memorial stuff, through them swimming in the pan, till they meet the old man.
Yeah,
the scenes aren't bad. The scene at Lincoln Memorial is good. The Washington Monument all looks.
I think a lot of that could have been trimmed down. I think the lake scene was important though.
I don't want to fault it and say it should have been trimmed down. Like, it makes me feel like I'm complaining about a low attention span, because it's probably decent pacing. It just kind of felt like it got slow there, mostly because at that point it feels like the movie should be ending soon.
Yeah.
And for all of it, we're laughing about I got an hour left. It's true. At that point, it felt like the movie was almost over, and it all of a sudden slows way down, and you realize you're only halfway there. And I think the issue I had was I was having a hard time figuring out what I cared about. Like, I'm like, wait, is there an hour more worth of material here that I'm interested in?
I feel like there was a good 40 minutes left.
I think they... well, the thing is with the old man was interesting.
Yeah.
And I really liked that scene. I liked the character. It finally gave you a glimpse as to how deep the society is as far as the youth thing.
Yeah.
Like, seeing an old person was confusing to them. It wasn't like if they'd been scared or something, I would have been like, eh. But the confusion kind of hit home. Like, they'd never seen a cat, and it feels weird for a second. And then you're like, well, it's a closed off society. Why would they have cats? It's another mouth to feed. Why would you have them? Like, if you just didn't have them when you started the society, if you ate them all, because they were short on meat, then yeah, maybe they just don't have them. But so the old man scene was just full of little stuff like that. So I really feel like it picked back up at that point. And then the Francis comes in for his big fight. But then after Francis, they decide to go back to the sanctuary. And I think the movie didn't lose me at that point, but I can't say I was as interested then as I was.
I really like the interrogation scene, though.
The interrogation scene was weird. It was interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I think I was at that point just a little confused. Maybe my issue was at the end, I started to realize how few things were going to be resolved.
Yeah.
It started to get a little frustrating. I'm like, oh, they're not going to explain renewal. They're not going to explain what happened to the world. They're not going to explain the crazy ice level with Box. Like, there's a lot of really interesting things in the movie. Once you start getting to the finish and you start to realize, nah, none of that stuff was that important.
It seems like they do a lot of world building, but then kind of stop short. And it's almost like, I can't tell if it was because they were thinking they were going to do a sequel or something. They did a TV show for a full season.
Yeah, which I know nothing about.
Yeah, I don't either. I never actually went back and tried to find, apparently it's really hard to find to begin with.
Yeah.
Through any kind of legal means. I looked on IMDb. Somebody who rated it pretty high said they liked it, but the only thing they could find was a really bad copy of some old VHS or something, and that it just looked terrible. So it's just impossible to find. So I don't know if any of that world building went into that, or if the TV show was just a reboot.
I guess. I mean, in the end, though, it's like if the movie doesn't do it, then
the movie just doesn't do anything with a lot of the stuff, and it's weird that they throw a lot of that in. I think it goes back to your point about it being it's the 70s and it's going to be a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
And so they kind of had a little bit of filler that went nowhere.
And they built the cool robot costume for Buck, so they had to use it. Whether they had an explanation for it or not, they had to use it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was important to explain why none of the 1,000 people that escaped, made it to any kind of sanctuary, but I guess there were probably other cheaper ways they could have done that.
Yeah.
But that was definitely an interesting way of going about it.
Yeah. It just, there was a lot of stuff in there that, like I said, I wanted to know more, and you didn't get to know more.
Yeah.
But that's not, the worst criticism for a movie. I was interested in a lot of parts in the movie that I didn't get to know more about. That's I guess a positive thing for it.
I think the movie raises some interesting questions. I think it does some interesting things that hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
At the time.
Visually, it's very interesting. Considering the limitations.
It's pretty good looking for a movie from 76.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the seams, you can see the actor's mouth inside Box's costume.
And the model looks like a model when they're showing the car scene.
Oh, absolutely. Still, even for the limitations, everything looks clean and interesting. The costuming, I
think the model part, it's only a problem because I actually rented this in HD.
Oh.
And I had never seen this in HD, and this movie was clearly not made for HD.
It was clearly meant for 4K.
But for its time, it looks good. It's an interesting story. Like I said, it did some new things. I liked it.
There are a couple things I don't want to give the movie a pass about before we wrap up. I want to make sure we mention.
Okay.
First of all, there's a typical 70s gratuitous nudity.
Yeah, a couple random shots for no reason.
Like that, and because it was
they actually try to give it a reason, too. One of the only times there's actual nudity is when they're changing in that ice cave, and he's like, let's get out of these wet clothes before they freeze to us, because they're going to put on some, bear skins or whatever.
Yeah, but the wording on that, I thought, because he doesn't, say, oh, these clothes are going to freeze us to get out of them, the way he says, let's get out of these clothes before we freeze. There's a pause, so it had just enough time for my mind to say, did he really just say, okay, let's get naked? And then they just do. Yeah. Oh well, he doesn't. He keeps his pants on.
Yeah, he does.
You can see all the.
Well, it's all warm down there.
Yeah, you can see all the tits and ass you want, but the guy can't take his pants off.
Yeah. I
guess a tie-in to that is the female character is very weak, and it makes the movie
just kind of tags along.
Yeah,
like he needs her to get into the secret society thing, but at the same time,
she's smitten with him. That's her character. Like that's it. That's the end of her character.
Even though for the longest time she disagrees with everything about him.
Yes,
she still kind of likes him and follows him everywhere.
And they managed to keep it.
Like the one time she tries to help in the fight, like she just picks up the gun that the guy dropped and throws it away.
Yes,
doesn't use it, doesn't throw it to the hero, doesn't do anything else, just throws it away. I mean, it's helpful. Yeah, no, it's what gets that cat wrecked.
She's not allowed to have any real agency. I mean, I guess you could argue that because she's the connection to the secret society and because she stands up for him as a runner and all that, there's something there, and there is. But man, every time the two of them are alone, it's a little cringeworthy.
Yeah,
it's not quite Blade Runner.
No,
it's not. Well, no, I'll give him credit for that. Like I know that sounds stupid to say that. Well, it manages to not quite be rapey. But it never did cross that line, and I kept waiting for it to do that. I kept waiting for him to shove her against a wall and kiss her and have her succumb. But he does, to the point that he literally waits for her to give verbal consent. The line is, this time I'm saying yes.
In his defense, he sounded so surprised that she didn't want to sleep with him the first time.
Yeah.
Because he finds her on basically Future Tinder.
And
she puts her thing on this thing called like the link?
The circuit.
The circuit.
Yeah.
And it's basically like you dial it up and people show up in this weird closet of yours.
Yeah.
And when you find the one that you want to sleep with, the closet opens and they can step out. Yep. So he flips through a couple people, lands on her. She comes out and then is like, nah, I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
and then he's like, that's weird. Why did you put yourself on the circuit then?
Yep.
But never forces her to do anything. Never like oversteps his bounds. Yep. It's just weird for an old movie like that.
I appreciate it.
Which was good.
I really did appreciate that. They're free about sex, but it's not. The women don't have to be submissive to the men.
Yeah. So that was a weirdly progressive thing from the 70s.
Yes. But outside of that, though, her
character wasn't great.
She doesn't do anything. Yeah. It's like she's a placeholder character, which is all
writing. It's like nothing she did wrong with the acting. The acting was fine.
Yeah, she was. I didn't have any issue with the actress. And we're not saying her name or pretty much anybody's name because I don't know who any of these people are.
I know.
And I could list off the actors' names, but it probably wouldn't mean anything to 90% of the people that are listening. Yeah. And if it does mean something to a person that's listening, they probably already know who that person is. The actress is decent, but the
writing for her, the character,
but it was really no different than any of the other characters that were running around in the 70s. Like it was pretty standard for back then. So you kind of got to give it a little bit of a pass, but just acknowledge the fact that yes, it's dated because of that. If the visuals didn't date it enough,
yeah.
It is.
But it never got like creepy. So that was nice.
It was.
Farrah Fawcett was in it for like 10 minutes.
Oh, poor Farrah Fawcett. Yeah, my only note about her was literally poor Farrah Fawcett. She's the plastic surgeon's assistant.
Yep.
And she doesn't do it. Well, I guess she is part of the resistance. She pops up as part of the resistance just long enough to get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She seems to like the doctor that she works for. Watches him get all sliced to pieces by his machine.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like the doctor was probably one of the weirdest choices in the movie because he's a part of the resistance.
Yeah.
It appears that he got a phone call in the middle of that from them to kill Logan.
Right.
So Logan fought him off and killed him instead. But the doctor wasn't a bad guy.
Yeah.
So Logan just killed him.
He just seemed really creepy and
bad. He was creepy. But Farrah Fawcett wasn't creepy. I liked her.
Yeah.
She was a real nice
She was
person.
a nice girl.
She was.
Nice girl.
She didn't deserve to get like a rock dropped on her head or whatever happened to her. But
I think she just got blasted by Sandmen.
By the firecracker guns they used?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Firecracker guns.
I gotta say though, real quick, the guns I thought were lame.
Yeah, they are real bad.
I know it's the 70s and I know some of the visuals are gonna be iffy, but like even from their standards, like the Star Wars,
like they didn't even have squibs or anything. They would plant these little firecrackers in the walls and in things, and then just detonate them.
I mean, Star Trek phasers looked better than this.
Yeah.
Like, original series Star Trek phasers looked better. They should have just...
Yeah, and that was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And they could still do laser beams and stuff.
Not a lot of excuse for the...
I don't know if it was just like a cost-saving measure or what. But...
It's just probably a relatively low-budget movie, doing whatever they feel like doing. But, yeah, I didn't really like the guns. Most of the visuals I thought were interesting, but I thought the guns were lame.
Yeah, it seems like they put all their money into the set design.
Yeah.
Those are some big sets.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that it was shot in Dallas. I would have legitimately believed that was just a dressed-up Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
It looked good. I guess that
crazy swamp leading up to it was interesting.
Yeah, I like that the DC area was reduced to swamp because I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess that somebody was thinking about that. It's not just like a desolate wasteland out there or something.
Yeah, so it was all overgrown like grass and trees and
I like legitimate swampland. That's
but
what
then
I like.
swamps, swampland.
So, but that all looked pretty good. But yeah it was surprisingly done in Dallas, not in DC. All right, I think we're talking about very small details, so I think we might have hit the end of things. Anything else in particular you wanted to bring up?
If you like sci-fi and you're looking for you just haven't seen this for some reason, I still recommend you go out and watch it eventually. It gets referenced enough that you'll be in on the joke.
Yeah, I would say, having not seen it, I'm glad I watched it. There's certainly more to it than what the references make it seem like there are. Know what you're getting into when you go to see it, or when you sit down to it. Go to see it.
It is a 2-hour movie.
It's a 70s movie. There's going to be
70s movie.
Some slower moments and some whacked out stuff, and expect some things to not have any kind of resolution. But I think it's a fun ride. It was a lot better than I expected. So, yep, I recommend this 40-year-old classic.
I agree with that.
All right,
I think that's where we can end it.
All right, so thank you for making me watch that.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks to everyone for listening. Remember to hit the like, subscribe, follow, all the internet buttons, and join us here whenever I do another one of these. Good night, everybody.